Okay, so for those of you who are stressed out about the quiz tomorrow, there you go. You were supposed to go to google.com and type up parent graphs, and if you click on the hot math link, you should be able to see everything. Don't forget that I'm going to quiz you on these, okay? And so basically the equations, and also I'm going to ask you what kind of function they are, okay? And you have to identify the graph as well, okay? There you go. Same thing here, absolute value, quadratic formula, quadratic functions, the square root function, the cubic function, exponential function. Okay, let me just clarify that for this equation here, you don't have to know these two. You just have to understand that y is equal to 2 raised to the x power, and it is an exponential function. We talked about this in class yesterday. Same thing with the logarithmic function. Just worry about this one and not that one. Okay, and this is a logarithmic function. Okay. Let's see what else. The sine and the cosine, we talked about this in class yesterday again. With the sine, your y-intercept is at 0. With the cosine, your y-intercept is at 1. But it's the same thing. It's a wave, okay? And all of these are all trigonometric functions, but it says sine, cosine, and tangent function. I guess that's okay. You can just leave it like as is. And remember the difference between the tangent function over here and the cubic function over here? There's only one, but they look the same. And tangent, they repeat over and over and over again. So just keep that in mind. Hyperbolic function is y is equal to 1 over x, and it looks like this. So just try and remember the dance moves as you look at all of these, and it should help you. Okay? And if you watch the dance video again, I put the equation next to the moves, so maybe that would help you remember a little bit better. Okay, then now let's move on to the next set of questions that you're going to see on the test tomorrow. Oh, and by the way, yeah, I haven't decided yet. I might make this into a multiple choice test question or a written out one. Let me think about that one, okay? But just make sure that you know all of them. Even if I give you a written one, you should be able to list it. But even if it's multiple choice is easier, so maybe I might go that route. Okay, so next set of questions, I only have 3 more questions for you. 1, vertex form, and 2, with solving quadratic formulas. Okay, hold on. Okay, so then now let's take a look at this, okay? The first question that I'm going to give you is finding the vertex form, then provide the vertex for the function, and here's the equation right here. Uh-oh, why isn't it writing? There you go, 6 x squared plus 48x minus 5. And so that's the function, okay, where you have to find the vertex form. So let's go ahead and do this, okay? So first thing you have to do, I know we all remember this, right, is to pull out the 6, right? And you're only dividing the x squared and the 48x over here, okay? So 48 divided by 6 is 8x. And then you're just supposed to leave the negative 5 by itself. Okay? So once you do that, we have to complete the square over here. So I know some of you are confused, so I'm going to draw this line over here. I'm going to try and explain on the right-hand side. We already know all the steps, so I don't really have to explain the steps for you. But I'm just trying to show you some parts that you don't understand. So important thing is that you got to complete the square inside the parentheses. And I know most of you remember this, but some people don't. So I'm just, trying to remind you of that right here, okay? So there you go. Let's go ahead and do this. Okay, so it's going to be f of x, and that equals 6 times. And then it's x squared right? And then plus 8x. And then we got to remember, what were we supposed to do with the 8 over here? So mathematically, we had to divide by 2 and then square it. So 4 squared is 16. So that means we got to add 16. But since we added 16, now we got to subtract it, right? But when we subtract the 16, you got to remember that the 16 was inside the parentheses. So that means when you added 16, you actually added 16 6 times, okay? So you're going to now go ahead and multiply the negative 16 by 6 to make it the same. Now let's not forget that you had a negative 5 over here. So I'm just going to include that to make sure that my equation is the same. Next thing we gotta do, we gotta make sure that we simplify inside the parentheses, right? All right. So then let's go ahead and keep going. So we have f of x, and that equals 6 times x plus 4 squared. And then this, if you multiply them together, is 36. So that's 96 minus 5, right? And so now we have to just simplify this part, which is negative 101, right? So for those of you who are confused with that part, when you have two negative numbers and you're supposed to add them, you just add them together and you keep the symbol. And so here is my vertex form. That's my first answer right here. And then it says provide the vertex. And so we all know that the vertex is going to be what? Negative 4 comma negative 101. And we talked about why this is so, right? So I hope you remember all of that, but if you don't, that's why I'm here for you. Isn't that true? So you're going to ask me, okay? And just to remind you, I'm gonna put it right here. The reason why that was the vertex form is because this is the formula, right? A times x minus h squared minus k, and we all know that the vertex is h comma k, and that's why even though there's a negative here, our vertex is just the h, not the negative. That's why we have to change symbols over here. Not the 4, but the negative 4, okay? Because it's x minus negative 4. So this is negative 4, but then the, oh shoot, I said negative k. This is plus k, and so this is positive k. So this whole thing, negative 101, that's going to be your k. So I hope you understand this question. Now I'm going to go ahead and move on to the next question. Give me a minute. I think I have somebody. Okay, so now let's keep going. Let's see. So I'm going to give a new sheet. Here's the next question. Let's see. So the next question is going to be to find the factored form. Oh, I'm sorry. So the next question is to find the factored form. Then solve. So this is, there's two parts to this question. You gotta first find the factored form to get some credit, and then you gotta solve. So you gotta tell me what x is equal to, okay? And then, this is like part A, part B, and then here's part C. And part C says, how many solutions are there? And how many roots are there? And these are all essentially the same thing. And how many x-intercepts, okay? And it's really important that you understand this not just for this test, but also for the district final, okay? So there you go. There's three parts A, B, and C for this question. And this is going to be the last to the second question that you have to solve. So here's the question. F of x is equal to 4x squared plus 7x and then plus 3. So I think by now everybody knows how to do this. And, you know, I'm just gonna show you how to do it really fast. It's the big X. What you're gonna do is you're gonna multiply A and C together. 4 times 3 is 12, and you put it up there. And then the 7, which is the number by itself, you put at the bottom, okay? And then from there, you're going to find two numbers over here and here that you can multiply to get 12. So I do like this. And then add to get 7. So I told you to start with 1. 1 and 12, and then 2 times 6 is 12, and then 3 times 4. And you know what? I could stop right now because I already know that 3 times 4 is 12, and also 3 plus 4 is 7. So then because I have a leading coefficient 4, I told you that what you have to do is now use the fraction bar and put the 4's on top. And then your two answers in red, the 3 and 4, that's what you put at the bottom. Then you look at the fraction to see if you can simplify, right? And yes, you can. You can divide the top over here and the bottom by 4, which gives you 1 over, oops, that looks like a 6, but it's a 1. Okay, so then what's your answer going to be? Well, your answer is going to be 4x plus 3. And then over here, we have to simplify this. So that's your answer, right? Which is x plus 1. So that is your answer for part A because that is your factored form. But of course, I don't want you to write your answer like this, right? I want you to make sure that you put f of x equals, and then 4x plus 3 times x plus 1. And then what you have to do is answer part B, which is the solving part. And that is the easy part, right? So I'm going to have to move on to the next page for that one. Uh-oh. Okay, there you go. So then if you go back, you can see what the factored form was. So that is f of x is equal to 4x plus 3 and x plus 1. So then in order for you to solve part B, which is solving this, you have to say that this is equal to 0. Because whenever a question tells you to solve something, it's basically telling you to find the x-intercept. So when two numbers multiply to become 0, okay, because you have to remember there are two intercepts, and in order for you to find these 2 points, you gotta say that these two equations are equal to 0 because the y-intercept has to be 0. By definition, I'm sorry, the x-intercept. By definition, the x-intercept means when y is equal to 0, right? So 4x plus 3 equals 0. X plus 1 equals 0, okay? So then from here it's pretty obvious. You want to find out what x is equal to. So then you solve for x. Subtract 3 from both sides of the equal sign. So you get 4x is equal to negative 3. And then you're going to divide both sides by 4. So x is now equal to negative 3 over 4. And that's going to be your first answer, right? Now with this part over here, it's much easier. It's a one-step equation, so you're going to subtract 1 from both sides. So now x is equal to negative 1. So your two answers are obviously going to be x is equal to negative 1 and x is equal to negative 3 over 4. And so basically this point over here, okay, this point over here is going to be negative 1, and this point over here is going to be negative 3 over 4, and that's exactly what we are saying. Now to solve part C, it's very simple, and all it's asking is, why do I keep losing my pages? All it's asking is how many x-intercepts or solutions are there, and obviously from the drawing you can tell I have two answers. That means that there are 2 points that's touching the x-axis, okay? So basically your answer for C is going to be there are 2 intercepts. Now if you only had one answer, that means that the parabola is touching the x-axis at only 1 point. So your answer would be there is only one x-intercept. Now sometimes you don't have any solution. You would have like a square root with a negative number inside the square root. That means that the parabola is not touching the x-intercept at all. And then you would have to say that there is no x-intercept. Okay, but that is something that will not show up as of right now. We will talk about that a little bit later after this test. Okay, now the final question that you're going to see on your test is going to be a problem that you have to solve using the quadratic formula. Okay, so there you go. Now even though you don't want to use the quadratic formula, you have no choice because there's no other way you can solve this. without using the quadratic formula. And so here is the equation. F of x equals 4x squared minus x plus 8. I'm trying to use big numbers because if I don't, then you guys get angry at me on the test if I give you a big number, right? And so I want to prevent that. So let's go ahead and sing the song first, because the quadratic formula is the song that we sang and we had competitions on. Ready? Go. X equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. Okay, so then we gotta find out what our a, b, and c is. Remember this part? This is my favorite part. So here's my a, and then if there's no number next to the x, just a negative, that means negative 1 is b, right? And then what is c? Positive 8. And I have to write this down because otherwise I'm going to get confused. Now we already talked about solving these type of questions yesterday, but we're just doing it again. Okay, just because I'm gonna go really fast. So x equals negative, and then b is negative 1 plus or minus the square root, and b is negative 1 again, squared minus 4, and then a, and then c. And that's all over 2 times a. And then from here, we just have to simplify, right? Okay, so there you go. X equals, I have to go back. Over here, there were 2 negatives, so that makes it a positive 1 plus or minus the square root, and then it's all over. Let me go back. 2 times 4 down here is an 8, so 8. Now I gotta look inside the square root, so let's take a look. Negative 1 squared is 1, so I'm going to put 1 in there. And then negative 4 times 4 is negative 8, and negative 8 times 8 is negative 64. So there you go. So then x equals 1 plus or minus the square root of 1 minus 64 is negative 63, and this is all over 8. And then you might be like, Miss Choi, what are you doing? Can you have a negative number inside the square root? And I'm going to say yes, but only in your imagination, because the square root of negative 1 is an I. Okay, so I'm going to have to try and explain this later on again, but this is the same as square root of negative 1 times square root of 63, and it's all over 8. I wish I gave you a problem that had the heart in it, because now we gotta separate. Now the square root of negative 1 is an I, so we're going to put I and then square root of 63 over 8. Because when you try and factor 63, oh my bad, we could. It's 9 times 7. So 9 is 3 times 3, right? So I'm going to erase this because Miss Choi was being careless over here, right? And so over here, it's supposed to be negative 1 times 3 times 3 times 7. So we all know that 3 gets to escape the sleeping Beauty's cursed castle. So the 3 comes out, and then remember what I said about the square root of negative 1? That's an I. And so then what's left? The square root of 7. And so now you are done, because you can't really simplify the 3 and the 8. I wish this was like a 4, so that way we can simplify. But anywho, that is your answer. Okay, so I hope this helped you with your quiz. Now I want you to remember what we did in class yesterday about the whole simplifying bit. Okay, so I'm just going to talk about that for a little bit over here. The bell just rang. If you had something like negative 2 plus or minus the square root of 96 over 3, then this would be negative 2 plus minus, and 96, we did it on the other page. It was square root of 7 over 3. When we separate, we have to do this side first. So x is negative 2 over 3 plus minus, and then we do that part next. 3 square root of 7 over 3. Now don't forget, we're not touching this. We're only simplifying that. So my answer is x is equal to negative 3 plus or minus the square root of 7, okay? So this is just the bottom part. If your answer, as you work on it, comes out to be something like this, you just have to be able to simplify things, okay? And so that's it for today. I wish you the best of luck on your test tomorrow, because after tomorrow's test, You're going to have your final in 3 weeks, and I am so excited for you. I hope you pay attention in class after this test tomorrow. Thank you and have a great day.